Why is it so dark? Scary. Nah. So, what am I doing here? I've come back. It's been 15 minutes or so, and I still have, boink, 65 psi. 65 psi still on the return fuel line. This is just the way I have it hooked up. I'm testing if there's any, I don't know, I call it drawdown pressure or pressure loss over time, coming from the fuel pump and through the fuel rail. So this is the return that goes back to the fuel pump, and that's where I have my pressure gauge. So push the key to start, waited for a few seconds to build up pressure, then turned it off. Now the fuel would run from the fuel line in through the pressure regulator here, down around through the fuel rail, and over here to the return line, and want to go back, but it's not able to, so it builds pressure. And if I were to see this drop, then I would know there was a leak somewhere in the fuel system, because I'm trying to figure out, why doesn't this car just start right back up? Say I turn it off and I come back an hour later and go to start it. It takes 3 or 4 crank cycles of 5 seconds each to start, and then even at startup it's kind of like ooh, 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 and then it starts going, and gets up to idle speed. So the question is now, the fuel rail each splits off and goes down into the fuel injectors, and they must have a little valve in here controlled by the wiring that opens, closes at the right time. But I know they also have an O-ring down there, so possibly there could be leaks around those O-rings. If there were leaks around the connection between the fuel rail and the injector, then we could also see the pressure dropping here. Oops, get you back. So it's been 15 minutes. I'm gonna come back in maybe 30 more minutes and see what I've got, but I really expected it to be dropping somewhat even this soon, and that kind of leaves me with the question of, why am I having such a hard time getting this thing to start? It always starts on like the 3rd try, but that's after a lot of you know, and then with this one you turn the key and you let go, and then it figures out itself when it's started, and if it isn't, it stops after a certain amount of seconds or cranks. So I'm always getting to that cutoff and then having to try again. Maybe push the gas a little while I'm trying it. I don't even know if the fuel injection, if the gas pedal has any effect on it, because it's a drive-by-wire. There's no cable. So yeah, what is wrong with this thing? Just kind of seeing if this was on there. One other thing that was weird is that when I forgot to plug this coil back in, just this connector here, I had started it up and it started, but then I plugged this back in thinking, oh my gosh. So I plugged back in and I didn't hear any difference in the engine having one cylinder not firing on the spark plug. Maybe that's normal. Maybe you wouldn't hear from just one, but I thought I'd feel or hear some kind of difference. So if you have any clues of why this may be needing to crank so long before starting, and it always does start up, luckily, let me know what tips you might have to check out, because if it was a fuel pump, I've had it before where a fuel pump couldn't hold the pressure, and it, say for instance it had a split in the little tube that goes from the pump up to the connection where the fuel lines are, and so a lot of the fuel would just, as soon as you turn the car off, the fuel would just leak back out of that split, and even be pouring out of that split back into the fuel tank while you were driving. So for this one though, it's not, the pressure's not reducing. Alright, I'll leave it to you guys. Give me some comments, help me out.